Welcome, dear students. The session focuses on what is language. I hope and expect that by the end of this session, you would be able to understand what is language and what is its definition that is accepted worldwide. You would also be able to understand what are the ambiguities related to the term and what are the varieties of meanings that are associated with the simple term language. Well, my dear students, enormous numbers of ordinary people are fascinated by the term language or by the word language, and they have very, very strong opinions about it. Apparently, it seems that the term is very simple and we all know what does it mean. However, when it comes to defining language, the task becomes very difficult. In fact, language is something that distinguishes human beings, that distinguishes mankind from other beings, from the animal world. Sometimes humans are called tool-making animals. And I think the biggest tool or the most interesting tool or the most significant tool that they have made is language. Other animals also use some kind of sounds. They use cries, for example, to signal some trouble, to signal some problem, something dangerous that is approaching, etc. For example, birds give or they utter warning calls. Some animals make mating calls to their opposite sex. Apes utter different cries to express anger, fear, happiness, joy, etc. Some animals use their postures to communicate, to convey meanings. I would just give a simple example. One day I saw a cat that was injured, and there was another cat that was furiously looking at it, ready to attack. Now this injured cat sat in a posture like we sit during prayers. That particular posture was a kind of a submission that conveyed a message to the other cat, please do not attack. Same is the case with hive bees. They indicate direction, and in fact, when they get some good news about the presence of nectar in flowers in some garden or at some place, they convey this message, they communicate this message to other bees through their movements. It is said that dolphins also use some kind of language. In fact, they combine both body posture and sounds to convey meanings. However, what is it that differentiates human language from animal language? The point is that animal cries are not articulate. Basically, they lack structure, and actually what happens is that the kind of distinction that we find or the contrast that we find in human language that occurs through the distinction between vowels and consonants, that is not present in animal cries or sounds. So, if somebody finds, a human being finds that there is an attack being made, tanks are coming, there are different possibilities for that person to convey or to communicate that. For instance, tanks are approaching from the north, or aircrafts are approaching from the north, or tanks approaching from the west. So, there can be different sets of information with different structures, etc. But if a bird has to convey that an enemy is approaching or is going to attack, the only possible signal is cries, which would tell that an enemy is approaching, but the minute details that the first three instances tell in case of a human being would not be conveyed. Thus, we conclude about this particular point is that animal cries or animal sounds or signals that are made, they are very, very limited in number. Whereas human language is capable of producing meanings that are infinite in number and infinite in variety. The meanings of human utterances can be particular in particular contexts, whereas animal cries are very, very general. This leads us to the point that human language is a very, very complicated system of signaling. Apart from the spoken language, we have writing as a means of communication, which is derived, of course, from spoken language. Now I'm taking you towards certain definitions that are technically defining language. If you look at different sources, different dictionaries, thesaurus, etc., you would find more than one definitions are given for one word language. Mainly, language is defined in all these dictionaries and thesaurus in two ways. If you look at your screen, you would find it is defined first as a method of human communication that is either spoken or written, consisting of the words that are used in structured and conventional way. Now, what is important is conventional way and structured way. You know, human beings give it certain conventions. They give it, a certain form and a structure. Another definition is a language of gesture and facial expression. That is also called, a language. The second way of defining it as a particular language of a particular community or a particular group of people or a particular country. So, for instance, Urdu is a language, or English is a language, or Punjabi is a language, or French is yet another language. So, that is another way of using the term language itself. The example that is given on the slide, you can see the book was translated into 25 languages. This is an example. Here I am bringing you to certain definitions of language that are given in Merriam-Webster's dictionary. The point that I want to prove is that the term language can be used in a variety of ways, and it has various meanings and connotations that are attached to it. The first one that I'm going to talk about is the words, their pronunciation, and the methods of combining them used and understood by a community. So, a particular language used in a particular community. The second way how the term is used is audible, articulate, meaningful sound as produced by the action of the vocal organs. So, different sets of sounds that we produce would be called a language. The third meaning that Webster's dictionary gives to the word language is it is a systematic means of communicating ideas or feelings by the use of conventionalized signs, sounds, gestures, or marks having understood meanings. So the example you can see here, the language of mathematics, or the language of arts, or the language of physics. Yet another way how Merriam-Webster dictionary defines language is the suggestion by objects, actions, or conditions of associated ideas or feelings. So, for instance, The means by which animals communicate, this is another definition of language, and the example is, for example, the language of birds, the sweet language of, for example, birds. It is also defined as a formal system of signs and symbols, and the example that is given is a calculus in logic. By the way, there is a computer language as well, which can be called machine language. Yet another way of looking at language is a form or manner of verbal expression specifically in terms of style. So, for example, if I say Shakespeare's language is beautiful, what does it mean? It means Shakespeare's writing style is beautiful. The particular language that he uses is beautiful. Yet another way, the vocabulary and phraseology belonging to an art or a department of knowledge. And here you can see the example, the language of diplomacy or medical language. Sometimes the term language is used to refer to a particular subject. For example, I got a grade B in language. And the last possible way in which Merriam-Webster dictionary defines language is specific words, especially in a law or regulation. And the example that is given is, the police were diligent in enforcing the language of the law. So I hope by now you understand that apparently the term language that seems to be very simple has many meanings and connotations attached to it.